Hello, Boker Tov, Chag Sameach, America. It's the 4th of July, Git Yantef. Okay, and for Canadians, belated Happy Canada Day, which was 3 days ago. Okay, Shalom. My name is Korazim, and I wonder how many people need for me to introduce myself. Can I see a show of hands? Oy, oy, oy. Oy, oy, oy. This is going to be the short version. Children, 2. Grandchildren, 8. 6 girls, 2 boys. I don't know that anything new is coming, so that's the situation for now. Guys, since I'm not American, I don't mind talking about my age. I won't talk about yours. Next birthday, October, thank you very much, I'm going to be 70. My bio is long. So here are the essentials. I was born, I went to school, more school, married, kids, school, more school. I'm at the phase where my oldest, Shira, 14 and a half, I'm bragging, started yesterday university courses for teens in the summer. Like, how much more than that can I brag about who I am? Born and raised in this country, born before the state was born, parents Holocaust survivors. People nod as if that should explain anything about me. Well, let me tell you, being the child of survivors will explain everything and its opposite and anything in between. And if you want to check that, I have my sister here, child of the same parents. We are totally different, okay? All right. I studied most of the time when I studied in Haifa University. I have literature. And then I went ahead and did a PhD in Jewish education. So go figure, stuff will happen in your life. I have a very special connection because of the family history and out of choice with the Jewish community of Hungary, mainly Budapest, because this is where the majority of the Jews now living in Hungary are. Don't ask me about that. See me after class if you want to know anything. Not that I have time today, but anyway, I'm rushing off to another place. What else would you want to know about me? That's like fun. I'm here. I'll tell you in a minute about my present. I'm a speaker. What do you mean why I'm here? You have to spend with me 90 minutes now, and you were running late. So actually, it's down to almost 80. So this is why we are not wasting too much time. I worked in Jewish education throughout my life, about half of my career within the Israeli system. Then I discovered the best kept secret in Israel. Do you know that our Ministry of Education makes really a good job of making sure that we will know nothing about you guys, about Jews who live outside of Israel? You know that, right? So I did the bragging, now I do the complaining. I'm totally Jewish, you can see that. And then at around age 40-something, I did discover that you exist, mainly in Montreal, and I became a shlicha, an emissary for the Jewish agency in Montreal, doing the stuff that shlichim are doing, not aliyah, education. I was never an aliyah shliach. I never nagged people to make aliyah, okay? So I have that on my record. It's while I was in Montreal, and then I had to drop it because I came back, worked for the Jewish agency. If you ever gave $1 to Federation, I have been on your payroll for over 25 years. This is no solicitation, just thank you guys. That's all. That's all. And I know you have done that. So I'm one of the people that you have supported. And I started working with Jewish education frameworks outside of Israel. That would be day schools, Hebrew schools, congregation, summer camp, adult education. Since we have mandatory retirement in Israel, and a very smart one because they retire women before they retire men, like, go figure. Yeah, I know, anyway. But we know it's coming, so we reinvent ourselves ahead of time. And I went back to an old love, and that is of teaching literature. And I have discovered that there is a way of addressing stuff Israeli through its literature. So this is why I'm here, ma'am, because some people think it's a worthwhile way of spending your time. Is that good? Anything that you absolutely need to know about me before we start? No. That's good. There's one thing I'd like to share with you, though. And that's my email. You know my last name. It's in your program, Korazim, right? My email is korazim@gmail.com. Why? Because you may want the text digitally. ask me, I'll email them to you. You may want a copy of the PowerPoint. I give it away freely. I'm not afraid that you will reproduce my lecture. You want to reproduce it? Go ahead, reproduce it. Not a problem. It's fine. So I'm giving you my email, korazim@gmail.com, just in case you want any of that material. Done? Done. So, the sun at Hartman when we need the screen. Can you see anything at all? It will move, so you'll see either less and less or more and more. But come on, in the majority in this room, we have studied before PowerPoint, right? And we will study without it if we have to. I want you to have a glimpse of what my desk, part of my desk, had looked like in the recent months that I've been working, kvetching, complaining, being disappointed, arguing with my best chavruta in the world. That's my son. You know why he is my best chavruta in the world. Because he had never agreed with anything that I have said. Never. Now, do I need another person to tell, yeah, Mom, it's great? No. I need somebody who said, Ma pitam, no way, you have to do it differently. Because when you have to address a topic like the one that was chosen for us, which is Israeli Jewish identity, like seriously, who will you choose? What kind of literature? How is it justified? Why that and not the other? And so on and so forth. So this is what this is what it ended looking like. But they were like 3 times as much. These are my choices. So first of all, I did not agree with the topic. What do you mean Israeli Jewish identity? As if there is one thing? As if we would agree, we Israelis? Come on, we are Jewish. It's halachically forbidden for us to agree on anything. So I figured maybe I will do Israeli Jewish identities. And that I thought it's committing to too much, so now they'll expect me to enumerate. If God forbid I should forget the Ethiopians or the Russians or whatever, then I will have enemies throughout the Jewish world. No way I'm doing that. So I did another modification on the topic. Beseder? Is that kosher? I have not committed beyond. I'm not telling you there's one Israeli Jewish identity because there is none. I know at least about 2 people who have been to France lately. I know about 1 person who comes from Montreal, so she must have some French. All the others I'm teaching you. In some fancy restaurants, there is something called menu de dégustation. When you get to touch, to taste, this is it. Menu de dégustation. We are not going too much in depth, but it will give you glimpses, and the Jewish custom goes. And after that, you will pick up all these books, all this literature. You'll ask me about what didn't get into it, and you will do it on your own, right? And preferably in Hebrew, because so much is lost in translation. So we are doing that by next time we meet. Then I said, okay, I need to somehow have some handles to go into the topic, okay? So I have decided on 4, and one of them you cannot see because it's in the sun. It's interesting. Let's go from the left. My first approach, like handle, would be asking the question, I wonder how the physical encounter with the land of Israel is affecting Jewish identity in Israel. The fact that you have to come in touch with it, with the land. So that will be our first approach. The second on the top is the issue of holiness, just a taste. I mean, most of us can define ourselves as non-observant, or as the Israelis will say, non-religious, lo dati, chiloni, secular. And yet, in spite and along with that, there is a constant friction with the holy. So I will be looking at 2 very different voices that will handle that, the particular friction with the holy. On the right-hand side, what you are missing and cannot see because of the sun is the word sacrifice. Now, this is not just, pushing it in your face, but it's there, right? That if you become an Israeli and you live in this country, there'll be that demand, that threat, that reality of the need to sacrifice for being here. Sometimes the love of your beloved ones, sometimes your own. So we will touch on the issue of sacrifice. And then last but not least, I called it with a very neutral name, Voices. And that's my way of telling you, well, we have touched major topics, but really what you should do is listen to as many different voices. And being who I am, by that I mean woman right now, you will see how I chose. So Encounter, we have Agnon, Zach, and Leah Goldberg. Holiness, we have Yulia Wiener and Yuda Amichai, and here we can barely see, but we have Asher Reich and Arya Sivan. I went for a little bit off the trodden track, like you are venturing beyond Yuda Amichai and Amos Oz today. You are going into some wild territory, maybe unknown to many, okay? And for this, I'm going for 3 women, Chamutal Bat Yosef, Shlomit Ne'im Naor, and Adi Kesar. And I wonder how many of you have read anything by any of these 3 women. I'm happy. Welcome. Let's go. So we are starting with Agnon. No. First of all, I need you to know very quickly, I'm not even going to talk about it. I created a timeline, and you can see my 4 topics: Encounter, Holiness, Sacrifice, and Voices. And then I went from the year 1900 to 2016 in the sun. Trust me, it's there. And you can see how the different works of art are spread out throughout the time. So you see that the earliest is 43, but it's second, and before it is 45. But the 45 is the publication date, while the topic is the second Aliyah. So I put him first, and that's Agnon. And we come all the way to the 2016 Voices, and I'll tell you, the latest book that we are reading was launched 4 weeks ago. Can I be more content than that? I don't think so. Okay? Let's go. We are starting from the top and the issue of encountering the land. And pay attention again. The sun is there, but you can see half of it. That I did not give you encountering the land, the Kotel. I did not give you Masada. I did not give you the Sea of Galilee, the classical images of the land of Israel. No, this is not where I'm going. It's not where I'm going. It's just the earthy, everyday walks, touch, etc. And if the sun will move, you would have been able to see a very important element of being in touch with the land of Israel, and that's the wildflowers that we are not allowed to pick. You know that. Do you know that? Guys, you are missing on an important part of Israeli ethics. Sometimes around the 60s, before that we were allowed and we picked like crazy. I belong to that generation. And then they came with this idea of protected wildflowers. And we have managed to teach nothing of proper etiquette to Israelis. They throw their garbage, they push in line, they are noisy, they are sweaty, whatever. But flowers we do not pick. The only success in the history of Israeli education system. So much so that when the waves of the immigrants from Russia in the 90s, we realized that we need to teach that in the Ulpanim back in the former Soviet Union before they came, because they would run into trouble as soon as they arrive, and they think that they, like in Russia, can go out in the field and pick any flowers, okay? So I wanted you to have that contact, but the sun took them away for us, but they are there, and it's Encounter, and we have our 3 people and Agnon. Now, I could spend the whole session on Agnon, and we could do that some other time, but we shall not. We shall not, because we want to hear the voice of a very particular novel. Agnon is considered by critiques the most important novelist that the Hebrew language had to date, and that would include Grossman and Oz and whatever, and Agnon still would be on top. But you see, that's the critiques. I don't know if the children of the critiques read Agnon. I don't know if their neighbors do. Agnon is not easy reading. It's worth your while, even through translation, but wow, it's hard. And the connotations and the reference and the language. Born in 1888 on the 8th of August, or not, because people say that he had invented that. And the Hebrew date Tisha B'Av, or not. Tisha B'Av on the 8th of August, 1888, is not the same date. When Emuna Elon, his daughter who passed away a couple of years ago, was asked, so what's the truth about your father's birthday? She said, who cares? The most important thing is that he was born. So, all right, in Buchach, which was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire at the time, which he will change in his writing to Shibush, like reversing the letters, okay, and making it sound this soft Yiddishy kind of name, okay? There is a lot of mystique around the person. The first Israeli writer to get a Nobel Prize, split with Nelly Sachs. You may remember. If you remember, I know how old you are, so don't nod, okay? But this is the 60s when he gets it. And he was the oldest of the recipients that year, so he got to deliver the thank you speech to the King of Sweden on that day. In Hebrew, mind you, in Stockholm. He did that. The Agnon would do that, okay? There is a whole mystique around Tmol Shilshom, which is an extremely important book. It's the story of the second Aliyah. Can I see a quick show of hands? How many of you, altogether, had any day school, Jewish summer camping, Hebrew school? Can I see a show of hands? Okay. Second Aliyah is what we, in general, Jewish educators, fed you there. Pioneers, drying swamps, planting and then picking oranges, dancing hora, living in kibbutzim, getting involved in the, you know the story? Okay. And Agnon comes back to that basic, modern, pioneering Jewish narrative with his Yiddish chutzpah, coming from Shibush. And he says, wasn't like that at all. Let me tell you. And he will create for us the personality of Yitzchak Kumir, that man of the second Aliyah who didn't make it. It was too hard for him. Lost his mind. And suddenly you have, it's as if, it's because of my sister that I do that, because she is a psychologist, as if you took the whole second Aliyah pioneering story into the therapist room and seated them down or laid them on a couch and said, all right, start talking to me. And then the bits and pieces will come together. And let me tell you, hora is not a major part of that. And neither is picking oranges. There is something behind. Okay? And we are going with Agnon there. I'm looking at my watch and tell you an amazing story about how it was created. Because Agnon says it was written in 45, but we found fragments in his house that was burned down in 29 that were already from that. So they are early apparitions of Kumir and the other important protagonist of Only Yesterday. Anybody happens to know? The black dog Balak. Okay, there are two major figures, Yitzchak Kumir and Balak. We shall only taste a bit of Yitzchak Kumir. Shall we? Let's go. All right. There's also a long story about how it was transcribed by his son during the 40s in 45, and how there was no, Agnon's handwriting was just illegible. You couldn't read it. So first his wife transcribed and typed, and then she got ill, and the daughter was not ready yet, and his son is in the Palmach. So he comes home for vacation, and Agnon shares his misery. There is nobody to transcribe. Says the San Chemdat, named after a work of art of Agnon by his mom, he says to him, but daddy, in our Palmach unit, everybody knows what Palmach is the fighting units prior to the state, okay? To the of the Haganah, not the Argun and not the Stern Gang, the other, the Haganah fighting branch. And so he says, but daddy, in our unit, kids of agriculturals can get vacation to help their parents. Why could I not? Your work is at least as important as agriculture. To say that in 45 in Israel? So go speak to the guys you know, and it went all the way down through Golom, the head of the Haganah, to Yigal Alon, the head of the Palmach, to the direct commander of Chemdat, who needed to give the permission of a whole month. And who was the direct commander? Yitzhak Rabin. Look at the young Rabin. Okay, so even the work in itself has already this halo of mystique. So you needed for pieces to survive a fire. So you needed Yitzhak Rabin to give a permission and to recognize that the work by Agnon is at least as important as toiling the land. Wow. Ready? Can we go? Yalla. Okay. All right, so when Chemdat is asked, so which novel was it that Rabin gave you the permission to transcribe? And he said, well, Tmol Shilshom, of course, only yesterday. The fact that most of it was written in 45 is troublesome in itself because what? Shmuel Yosef, in 42 and 43 and 44, you are writing a novel about the second Aliyah, 1904 to 1914? Like, are you nuts, sir? Your whole world is burning down, and you busy yourself with the story of creating the future state of Israel? Can you not pay attention? So Agnon was actually reprimanded for having done this particular work of telling the story of redemption to come. It's 45. We don't know that we will have a state yet. But Agnon must know that which we do not. And he said, yes, it's the time to do that. When it's all falling apart, we will need that. Open your pages. You have the Ivrit, of course, but we will do the English. We are on page 2. I need you to listen. How many have some Hebrew who will enjoy? Yeah, okay. We will do just a line because you need the intonation, and we'll move back to the English in a minute, okay? So don't feel uncomfortable or excluded or whatever. It's like when they read Torah. Okay? Just for a moment, like when they read Torah. כשאר אחינו אנשי גאולתנו בני העלייה השנייה, הניח יצחק קומר את ארצו ואת מולדתו ואת עירו, ועלה לארץ ישראל לבנות אותה מחורבנה ולהיבנות ממנה. It's literally as if we are reading Torah, because they echo, like all our brethren of the second Aliyah, the bearers of our salvation. Excuse me for continuing to call him Yitzchak and not Isaac. Yitzchak Kummer left his country and his homeland and his city and ascended to the land of Israel to build it from its destruction and to be rebuilt by it. What is Agnon doing? He is totally turning his back on these aspirations of new Jew, new land, drop the kippah, drop the cheder, drop the yeshiva. Say, forget it. And Agnon himself is second Aliyah. We are all people of back there. And this is the language we understand. You can think you're dropping anything. But Yitzchak Kummer, it wasn't Altneuland that he read. He read Lech Lecha, like all of us did. I mean, modern Zionism is nice, but our roots, the call, the redemption is all biblical. But you must remember that when you will finish reading Only Yesterday, which I know you will, that thick in English, okay? You will open again, promise me that you'll do that, the first page, and you will see the amazing art of Agnon and any other good writer, because everything of the secrets revealed in Only Yesterday are already here. And the first one will be the clash between the biblical aspirations, the sense of ascending to the land, and the reality of not being too able to do any of that. Okay, so bear it in mind. Could Agnon be making fun a little bit of this, Anu banu orza livnot uleibanot ba, like we came to the land to build and be rebuilt? Maybe. At this age, in the 40s when he's writing it, maybe younger already, even in the 20s, he had this sense of the old responsible guy who can look at the young people dancing, drying, swamping, picking oranges and said, Chevra, it's nice, but that's livnot uleibanot, build and be rebuilt, comes from another place. It's just not just a pioneer song. It has a background. Let's do 2 or 4 more lines of this. From the day our comrade Yitzchak knew his mind, not a day went by that he didn't think about it. So it's a childhood dream. It's who he is. A blessed dwelling place was his image of the whole land of Israel and its inhabitants, blessed by God, its villages hidden in the shade of vineyards and olive groves, the fields enveloped in grain and orchard trees, grown with fruit, the valleys yielding flowers and the forest trees swaying, the whole firmament in sky blue, and all the houses are filled with rejoicing. What is he seeing, poor Yitzchak Kumel? Not yet. Rolling villages, blue skies, little houses, roofs. What is he seeing? Europe, Galicia, Austria, Hungary, because you may be yearning to the other home, but your images of what a home and blessing looks like come from the environment of where you're raised. So already, on the first 2 paragraphs of this, you have the clash between the ideal. You have the images of what we bring with us from our countries that we came from, and they will be met later by their reality. So there is the biblical scholar, there is the Galicianer of his home, and of course the intonation is totally Yeshiva Bocher. In Hebrew it sounds a little bit like Yiddish, okay? All right, so all flowers and rejoicing. By day, now we come to milk and honey. By day, they plow and sow and plant and reap and gather and pick, like all of it. It's as if you cannot really tell it apart. It's all part of one image. Thrashing wheat and pressing wine. And at evening tide, they sit, every man under his vine and under his fig, his wife and his sons and his daughters sitting with him, Yah Halevai, happy at their work and rejoicing in their sitting. And they reminisce about the days of yore outside of the land, like people who in happy times recall days of war and enjoy the good twice over. Or will it be the other way around? When you will be miserable in Eretz Israel, and you will miss home so badly. And now the Agnon voice. So far we entered Yitzchak's Kummer mind. And now the Agnon stepping aside, by the way, a literary device that we will see many times adopted by Amichai. Giving you an image and then stepping aside and giving you a little bit of a critical voice. Okay? Those of you who studied Amichai with me, I always make a point of showing you that. And Agnon is doing is the prototype in Israeli literature. A man of imagination was Yitzchak. What his heart desired, his imagination would conjure up for him. Okay? So here's the wise Abba looking at Yitzchak Ale. He said, well, stop dreaming, kid. It's not going to be like that. I'll tell you your story. It's not going to be like that. And part of the story is very similar to Agnon's story and his disappointment of not being able to stick it out and moving back to Germany and only then making his own second Aliyah. Okay? Agnon knows Yitzchak Omer. There's a lot of Agnon in Yitzchak Omer. Okay, not the end, thank God. All right, so we turn the pages. We skip page 3 right now because this is an interesting encounter between the guy at the inn in Jaffa, who is not so decent, and he wants to keep him. And Agnon says, I want to go to Petach Tikva, like the opening of our hope. He said, no car going there today. I want to go to Rishon LeZion, you know, the beginning of Zion, all these biblical names and hopes. Nah, there is some problem there. And Petach Tikva or whatever, you know, the third one is no, Arabs had rioted it. And then Agnon steps aside and said, well, first of all of it could be possible. It could be that cars are not going there. But it also could be that the innkeeper, who doesn't have too many clients, wants to keep the only one. And there is suggestion, hold your breath, that old-time Israelis sometimes may be crooks. You never heard that. But the encounter with the land is an encounter with that option as well. It's not a biblical messianic name, chevre. They are like normal, decent, crooked people there, like everywhere else. But I want you to read something else, which is on page 4. Okay? He decides not to listen, to venture on his own. Yitzchak went out to look for a cart. As soon as he took one step, both his feet sank in the land. This is the sand of Jaffa. It's on top of a page. It looks like this. You have it on 3? It's mine. Okay, so I'll say one less every single time. Okay. This is the sand of Jaffa that digs underneath you to swallow you up. As soon as you stand on it, it runs out and turns into holes on top of holes. Oy. Our beloved Eretz Israel, as soon as you step on its soil, it's shaky. It doesn't give you security and stability and safety. It moves. It has holes. It will suck you in. Think about every piece of that imagery. The dynamic, the moving, the sucking in, the holes, totally different. But also remember the practical. Have you walked in sand? You know how difficult it is to walk in sand. You sink in. So the first physical encounter with Eretz Israel of Yitzchak Omer, if I don't stop it, it will swallow me up. And by the end, it will. These are not spoilers, because anything you ever will read about Mol Shilshon will tell you that. So just enjoy the road, okay? And then, so the land that is shaky, and now the other element. The sun was strong in its dominion and beat down on Yitzchak's head. His eyes were filled with salt and water. The fire leapt it and boiled it. His clothes are heavy and his shoes are blazing like coals. The iron shirt he donned in honor of the land, oy vey, sits on his heart like a socked matzah. And the imagery, you know, like you come to Eretz Israel, tell me a sock falafel. No. It's Yitzchak Omer, it comes from Shibush. His image of being soaked is a soaked matzah. He hasn't had falafel yet. His whole world is from there. Okay. And the hat rains salty dews down on his face. Now look at that and the image he had at home of the pleasantness and the comfort of the land, and now the reality, the heat. By the way, does it talk to your heart? Don't answer me. I'll know from your body language. Do you know that feeling of having the hopes and the dreams and then coming and facing disappointment? And facing heat that is unbearable and a hike that is too difficult and Israelis that are crooked, you know? So you ask me about Jewish identity in Israel. This is probably the first trait. The clash between beautiful biblical images, homes that are elsewhere, and the encounter with the physical reality of the land. There is more in that, but we are turning the page because the time is running on us. And I need for you to go to the next page, which by me is 5, therefore by you is 4. So it was terribly hot and he was soaked. And also bear in mind another feeling that is one of the traits of being a Jew in Eretz Israel, especially in the beginning, is the sense of physical inadequacy. Right? My clothes are not okay. My body cannot handle this. I soak in the land. What's going on? I used to be a different human being, and suddenly I'm garnished. I'm nothing. Some of you are nodding. They may have a glimpse of what I'm talking about. But then comes the comfort. Okay, which will not sound like it, but it will be. God took pity on him and he didn't lose his head. Yitzhak knew that the road he came from and knew that he could go back to the hostel. He made his heart obstinate. You want to live in Eretz Israel? You need to be strong, okay? And didn't return. He said to himself, today I will get to the settlement, Hamoshava, the dreamy thing of the first Aliyah colonies, okay? Has nothing to do with the way we use the word settlement today. Bear that in mind, okay? I'll go into the forest and dwell in the shade of the tree, and no sun in the world will overcome me. An imaginative man was Yitzhak. And he imagined that the people of the settlements, Moshavot, had planted forests to dwell in their shade. Soon after that, I'll skip one, okay? Yitzhak encountered one fellow. He said to him, pray, my lord, where might I find here a vehicle going to one of the settlements of the Jews? The fellow held out his hand and greeted him. He welcomed him, saying, a new man, huh? Ole chadash. Okay. Isaac nodded in reply and said, I arrived yesterday and now I want to go to Petach Tikva or Rishon LeZion. Does my Lord know where I might find the vehicle? Now this is as good as an adequate English translation for an Ashkenazi Hebrew that Yitzchak knows from Shibush, and that the Israeli will totally be making fun of it, okay? I wish we could do it in Ivrit. The fellow replied, does my lordship see those green trees standing in a line? If that may please my lordship, he will turn toward those green trees, and there my lordship would please to find the carriages my lordship is seeking, both those that journey to Pesach Tikvois, and those that journey to Rechoves and to Rishon LeZion, and those that journey to the other dwellings of our brothers, children of Israel, who dwell on the holy soil in the Holy Land, and all that to make fun of him for talking in his Ashkenazi Hebrew of the exile, Gola. Oy! Israeli Jewish identity includes the fact that other Israeli Jews with other identities will make fun of you. It's part of recognizing that there is stuff that you need to find your way into, that you think you speak the language, but you actually do not. And you will be made fun of because that's the way Israelis are. Don't get angry, though, because there is another aspect to us, and Agnon knows it. All that to make fun of him for talking in his Ashkenazi Hebrew of exile. Isaac got into conversation with him, and in the end, they went into a coffee house to drink a lemonade. So that very same Israeli who will totally mock you will also say, come on, man, Let me treat you to a lemonade. And that clash is also part of it. There is mockery, there is uncouth, there is difficulty to get inside, but at the end they'll give you a glass of lemonade, you know? Just hang on for a bit and you will become friends. You will go into the coffee shop and become friends. Okay, so we are moving on. And too much, Rachel. And we are going to meet Natan, who is still with us, unlike Agnon, long dead. And he comes to Israel with a different story, no butchach for him at all. His encounter with the land will be very, very different. He comes with the Yekes from Germany between 1930 and 1939. And I put for you, this was fun to find on Google, a poster advertising Hebrew courses in German and in Hebrew. You know, you're a Yeke, you have to make sure that it's precise. I mean, you want to study Hebrew, why would you need a poster in Hebrew? If you could read the poster in Hebrew, maybe you do not need the course of Hebrew. Also, there is a discrepancy because the address, Hechalut Street, in German, and in Hebrew it says Rehov Sirkin. So I wonder if they ever found the course, but this is again me, the Israeli, making fun of the Yekes, which is part of my culture growing up on the Carmel in Haifa, and the best thing to do would be to make fun of the Yekes. What else would you do, okay? And Natan Zach is part of that. And the story he is sharing with us of coming in touch with the land comes much, much later. He published it in the 90s. So this is a hindsight of having been a child of immigrants from Yekeland, okay? And probably be laughed at. But he wants us to come into that couch as the therapist, and he will now open up or tell us a story, or write us a poem. A delicate confession. I was born to be delicate. Fact! I have soft hair. Like, this is like, I was born to be delicate. You start with was born, not with the wish to make aliyah like Yitzhak Homer. No, taking you all the way back. I was born to a country in which you were meant to be delicate and fine. Look, even my hair, that's so Israeli. Don't believe me? Touch it. Okay? You want to check? Be my guest. My shampooed head is exposed to your gaze. Please excuse the little bald patches. They're just the ravages of time. He's aging already. I was born to be delicate as it happens. My parents decided they should emigrate to a country that is not so delicate. Can you hear any of the yearning? Can you hear any of the yearning? Excusez-moi. Decided. Look at the verb. There was a debate. There was a discussion. There was no longing and praying and singing Hava Nagila. None of that. There was a debate, a necessity. Actually, it's already there. You'll see it in a moment. We didn't really want to. It had to be done. To a country that is not delicate. Well, what can I tell you, to that Oriental desert? They did not decide in haste. They consulted with everyone. Even Hitler supported their decision. He said it was very sensible. Now, take a deep breath. This is going to be painful. Part of us Israelis come from families whose call to come to this country did not come from Lech Lecha nor from Altneuland. It came from the Stürmer. That's a toughie. That's a toughie. Hitler thought it was a great idea, and then we came. It's as open as a confession as you can expect from a Yeke about the fact that we loved Germany. We would have loved to stay there. They didn't want us. We are not here because of Zionist ideology or biblical reading. Thank you very much. We escaped. It's a different trait to the identity. That's how someone born to be delicate came to a country that is not delicate. You tell me, what choice did I have? Here it is. I had no other choice. I am not an Israeli by choice. I'm an Israeli because of Hitler. That's tough. That's very tough. What choice did I have? I still comb my hair with a delicate comb. I remain the yeke. Brush my teeth. Lose my hair. I'm aging. Send my clothes to the cleaner. I never insult the neighbors except when there is no choice. What does that say about other Israelis? When do they insult the neighbors? Morning, noon, and night. Okay? And Chaverim, here's one of the most important traits to some Israelis' Jewish identity. It's all a mistake. They said a terrible mistake had been made. I myself make do with shouting in my sleep. Do you think it will help? Any other psychologist in the room? What will you tell him? Will the shouting in your sleep help? When you're dreaming and having your nightmares about the delicacy left behind, about the sorrow of it all, about the horrors that you barely avoided, that you're like a good yeke being educated to be a delicate person, are not talking about. Will the shouting in your sleep help? We don't know. Don't make me laugh. I'm a serious man. If I have not been cursed by the generation, I mean my generation, I would have been crushing, I would have a crushing answer for you. But baby, it would not be too delicate. If I really belonged here, if I really adopted it, if I forgot who I was, I will give you an answer. But then it'll be an Israeli answer from the not-so-delicate country. Are you sure you want to hear that? Are you really interested in my identity and my feelings and my yelling at night? There is a part of a Jewish Israeli identity that is dreamt at night and that will rarely find expression. So we'll have to go all the way to Natan Zach to know that that particular trait exists. Okay. Pardon? All right, and we continue. And the third voice we want to hear is by Leah Goldberg. Made Aliyah in 1911, died as early as 1970. Great woman poet, one of that triad of Alterman, Shlonsky, Leah Goldberg of the 30s in Tel Aviv. Separate session, we are not doing it. You may remember, because I pointed it out when I gave you the timeline, that hers is the earliest published piece we are reading. It was published in 1943. I need you to engage your Jewish collective memory and know and understand deeply the meaning of the year 1943. Because while that horror is happening out there, we are going to first listen because it was set to music. You do know, or I'm telling you now, that a lot of beautiful Israeli poetry is set to music. We are going to listen for a couple minutes to my favorite rendition of that, which is by Chava Alberstein. And note, Chava Alberstein, I know exactly her age because she was my trainee in the military. So she's a year younger than myself, which means she does not look like she will in the picture. And Leah Goldberg, this too is a very young picture of her. And this is what I need for you to have in front of your eyes, okay? I want for you to have these women of the 40s. Chava Alberstein was not yet born in 43 because I wasn't, but a very young Chava Alberstein who connects to the very young Leah Goldberg of the time. Okay? Mm-hmm. Oh. Nah, not true. I thought it would open. And then it doesn't. Okay, we'll try again. It doesn't. We are not doing the song. I'm sorry. When they transferred this from my disc on key to the computer, I didn't check that the poems went with it. Let me double check for a minute, maybe perchance. No, they did only the PowerPoint, not the whole folder. I am so sorry. Next time, I think I double check everything and then there is something left. It's a beautiful song. Google it, YouTube it. You will find it, not a problem. And move now to You Shall Walk in the Field, which is interesting because it's not a translation of the Hebrew name. It's a decision of the translator. It's true, but it's the end, or it's in the poem. And oftentimes we call poem by a line from the poem. Okay? It starts with the Hebrew. Where are my cantor friends, Ronit? Do you know it? You do? Will you sing a few lines of it for us? I'll help you. האומנם וחסד ותלכי בשדה ותלכי בו כהלך חתם ומחשוף כף רגלך ילתי הספסת או שלפי שיבולים ידקרוך ותמתק דירתם עוד מטר ישיגך בעדת טיפותיו הדופקת על כתפייך חזך צווארך וראשך רענן ותלכי בשדה הרטוב וירחב בך השקט כאור בשולי הענן. Now I need for you, this is when thank you. This is when I'm gonna torture you, as I always take 1 minute, about how much is lost in translation. Ha'omnam is not really, is it true? It's way beyond. It's like, could it be? Is there a possibility? May I dream about it? Will you? Is it true? So you need to know that all the imagery that we will have in this poem, none of it is real. All of it is a dream. There is a sensual encounter with the land that did not really happen, that is only wished for, and it's connected to the year. So will the days come? Is it true? Will there ever come days of forgiveness and mercy? And by virtue of that, there is none today. So remember, everything is the opposite because you're wishing for it. And you will walk in the field. It's Leah talking to another Leah. It's actually an inner conversation with a future Leah. And you will walk in the field. It will come. And it will be an innocent walk. So are there possibly walks today that are less than innocent? And your feet on the alfalfa small leaves will be gently caressing. Oh, do you know what you're losing? The next couple of words are for only women. Men are allowed to listen. The Hebrew does not say your feet. The Hebrew says the cleavage of your foot. The Hebrew gives the way you look at that woman and the midi skirt she has, maybe a maxi, but that was picked up because of walking in the field. And there is a sense that the feet actually function like an intimate, erotic part of the body that comes through a cleavage. Men are allowed to listen. It's all for you anyway. And the cleavage of your feet on the alfalfa small leaves will be gently caressing, and sweet will be stings when you're stung by the rye of broken stalk. There is stinging that is sweet. but that'll be in the future. The stinging now is not sweet. And the drizzle. So we had the land, the soil, the stinging, very dry. So now we have the opposite. And the drizzle will catch you in pounding raindrops falling on your shoulders, your breast, and your neck. You need to be much more sensual than that in order to see like the whole body. It's not a sense of being drenched. It's not an uncomfortable being wet. It's the sweetness of the drizzle, the pleasure maybe after a hot season to have a little bit of rain. Think about Yitzchak Omer in the sand and his sense of the sand and her sense and his heat and the salty dew of his sweat. And this is the total refreshment of the rain. You will walk in the wet field and the silence will fill you as does light in a dark cloud rim. We went to the sensual, to the view. And you will breathe in the furrow in breath calm and even. Now the effect of coming in touch with the land. The land is caressing. The land is soothing. The land is comfort. And the pond's golden mirror will show you the sun up above. And once more, all the things will be simple as they used to. And maybe will be in the future, but not now. Things now are not simple. And present and living. And once more you will love. Yes, you will. Yes, once more you will love. Totally lost in the Hebrew. It's not you will love. Mutar lehov. It is the allowed to love. So the sense now is that you cannot afford to love. It's incorrect to love. It's not permissible. So you need to uncover and discover why is this feeling of the inability of even to allow yourself to love. What happened, Leah? You will walk all alone, never hurt by the blazing inferno of the fires on the roads fed by horrors too awful to stand. How can I enjoy Eretz Israel when I know what is happening in that inferno? In those images too awful to even think about. By 43, you know. And I need for you to feel that tension that is still with us. And in your heart of hearts, you'll be able to humbly surrender in the way of the weeds, in the way of free men. I need for all of us to understand this tension that Leah Goldberg, with a prophetic mind, in 1943, way before we fully discover the horror of the Holocaust, she knows that it will affect us, that it will create inability of a total enjoyment of the land. And what she is wishing for as early as 1943, and I am not sure that we have reached yet, is to somehow free yourself in Eretz Israel from the heavy weight of the Holocaust. Can we ever? Will we ever? Or will our ability to walk peacefully in the fields will always be connected to those other blazing, fiery, awful roads that our brethren had to walk? Are we bichlal allowed to fully enjoy after what happened? She doesn't know. You want trade to Jewish identity in Israel? It always has a Holocaustic question behind. It will influence a lot of us. Please also note, because there is so very little peace poetry in Israel, we don't write much more about wars than about peace in this country, that this is one of the most beautiful, although imagined and wishful thinking about peace, but so classical early Israel. What does peace look like? a field. It doesn't look like Tel Aviv. It doesn't even look like the wall or the kotel. It looks like a field in which you walk barefoot and allow yourself a freedom of enjoying the elements of nature. By the way, I don't want to cause you pain, but I know there are Israelis in the room who do not live in Israel right now. And I think in that longing for home when you are far away, there is a sense of the barefoot and the field and the connectedness with nature that many of us feel when the lack of when we are far away from the country. Again, I'm not asking for answers, just pointing out the possibility. Very much part of who we are. And the time is rushing. As always, I've prepared like 3 times more than what we can hopefully do. But never mind, we'll do a bit of each. So since you don't need for me to read Amichai to you, we will go straight to Julia Wiener. Will we do that? Will you find her for me? Just turn your eyes for a minute to the screen and see how Agnon will offer us in that question of the Jewish identities in Israel, connection, physical inadequacy to the land, linguistic language inadequacy, but also the idea of redemption. It's not just a political endeavor to create the state of Israel. It's spoken about in the sense of redemption. And think about how many of us Israelis, not necessarily me personally, think about our life here as on the way to redemption. While with Zach, you will have some of the Israeli cynicism, objection, mockery, etc. I did not really want to be here. By the way, come on, Natan, Zach. If you really wanted to leave, So there is this tongue-in-cheek kind of thing. And with Leah Goldberg, the soothing physical contact, the prayer mode, wishing for that which you do not have, the peace imagined like a field, like love, and of course, all the time contrasted to the Holocaust. Shoah utkuma, that couple of terminology that we always have within us. And we are skipping our beloved Amichai. We are not doing him today. And we are going to Julia Wiener, and the page you will have to look at. 10? Okay, I got the Hebrew. All right, from the city. So Julia Wiener does write in Hebrew. Is it kosher at all for me to present Israeli poetry to you about the Jewish identities of Israelis coming from a poetess who lives here, albeit in Yerushalayim, but she writes in Russian? Yes, Chaverim, it's part of Israeli Jewish identity. Some of us write in other languages. And we were Jews in those other places. And we came here, and now we are Russians. We could never manage to be Russians in Russia. There we were Jews. We come to Israel, B'sha'a tova, Mazel Tov, you are now a Russian. Okay? And so she is translated to us by another poetess woman, Hamutal Bar Yosef, and I hope, and if I manage my time carefully, that we will be reading something by her. Okay? So let's go, and this appears like, I'm going to say about 15 years ago. Okay, so you can read the first lines. My entire apartment consisting of 2 rooms is in Jerusalem next to HaMashbir LeTzarchan. So in case you do not know what is next to HaMashbir LeTzarchan, this is next to HaMashbir LeTzarchan. HaMashbir LeTzarchan is a department store. Don't go there, not extremely wonderful, not extremely cheap, no nothing. Ordinary department store, okay? But it's smack in the center of Yerushalayim, King George and Ben Yehuda. And now she asks the classical Israeli question. How is it that I specifically live in the center of the world? And we suddenly have these mixed metaphors. Like you are going to have the poor, kvetching, complaining new immigrant about a small apartment and not having enough money and not having work and not being able to master the language. No. But this is also the place that they talk of as the center of the world, and they gave you this ancient map. How did that ever happen in my life? You know, I was this probably good, the general universal education woman of the intelligentsia in Russia, and I was never too bothered with things Jewish or things holy and whatever. And then I end up to live in the smack middle of that? Like, that's interesting. How is it that I specifically live in the center of the world? It's true, there is also a manpower agency in the building, and other tenants like Mr. Karahan and Shidletsky family and Mrs. El Kayam. And can you see Israel? From almost all over, almost, not everybody is here. People insist on persuading themselves that this city was meant to be lived in. And you are hearing her voice, I'm not so sure. Was it really meant to? Or should we leave it on that sphere of the prophetic and the imaginary? Do we really want to live next to Hamashbir Letzalchan? Or should Jerusalem be left for the times we read Torah and Haftarah? You know, maybe it's better there. That this city was meant to be lived in. But when they feel her convulsive and convulsant tear beneath their feet, shaking the apparatus of their flimsy life, they hurry to pile upon her the burden of their day. That's how they keep the city standing above ground. The city, let me tell you, says Yulia Wiener, the way I experience it, it would have long ago gone up to heaven. It would have flown to where it belongs. But you know what happens? Because we live here with all our issues and problems and whatever, we actually superpose on the city. And they are so heavy. It would have gone, but it's us with our burdens who keep it here. Can you feel the touch of your connectedness to the land? It's by the fact that you live here that you keep the holy real, that you make Jerusalem stay and not just be the dreamy thing. And then she will go a step further. But sometimes at night, when the system of collective desire fails, like when you're supposed all to do a certain thing and pray and wish for Jerusalem in gold and pray for Shana Haba Yerushalayim next year in Jerusalem. At night, with the dreams, with the yelling of Zach, etc., with Kumer facing disappointment, it's all in the dreamy area. When you're not just preaching the big speeches, emptiness and silence once again prevail on these hills. Only a long-legged fox burst forth in pleading cry, and a porcupine rustling the bushes shed by quills. I love this city, but I don't know where it is. Is it over there, paved with fatherly stones, settled by conspiring strangers who came from the wilderness? Can you see her politics? Can you see her politics? Okay, that other part, the holy city, was taken away. Al-Aqsa, the Dome of the Rock, etc., the same discord, those people who came from the wilderness, etc., and took it away. Or over here, where in remembrance of the merit of our fathers, we build reckless homes. On which side are you, undivided Jerusalem? On whose side are you, my beloved city? So look at the absolutely deep honesty of the conflicts this new immigrant is living with. She has to settle the issue of having made a conscious decision to make this place that was a dreamy thing into her address. And once she is here, she is not so sure how the city really becomes a place to live here, to live in, and she decided that it's actually that, the difficulty, the problems, the burdens that stop Jerusalem from floating up in the air. But then there is all this divisiveness. So whose is it? Is that other holy part that it's not so Jewish right now? Is it the part here that we are actually desecrating by horrible building? So where is my beloved city? You know what I'm afraid? That the beloved Jerusalem existed as long as she was in Russia. And as soon as she came here, when the holy becomes mundane, with the burdens of reality, with the politics, with the quarrel, she's losing touch. She has to cry out to maintain the Jerusalem of the heart. And the time is 10:15. We are going to do one poem of the sacrifice so that we can do at least two of the voices. Is that a good deal? All right, because I need to let you go on time. I know that. I totally know that. Okay. Will you go to page 14 for me? By Arya Sivan. 13. Will you go to page 15 for me? To a poem by Arya Sivan called To Live in the Land of Israel. Okay? I want to show you the particular slide I have prepared for him. First of all, this is the slide about sacrifice. It's a classical, well-known sculpture that we have of the binding of Isaac. And we actually, in that interpretation, the ram did not arrive in time because a head is rolling on the ground. The sacrifice of Yitzchak was made. And it's in a dead center of an Israeli city. So, you know, like we live with that imagery of the real binding of our Yitzchaks. Think about Kumer again, all right? And in that, we have two poets. One, Asher Reich, who is amazing, but for another day. Actually, the man who I think already in the 50s had invented the Yetziah B'She'elah. He comes from the Torah Karta. He comes from the ultra Orthodox and became all the way around, etc. And he lives in Tel Aviv and still with us. And for Sivan, I died about a year ago. Actually, we had the Yurtzeit, I think, about 2 weeks ago. And Sivan, also a Tel Aviv person, will write to you about what does it mean to live in Israel. And you will think that this is your classical Israeli speaking to you guys, handing you the, you know, you have it good there and we are fighting. We do that all the time. So bear with me and bear with the poem. It wasn't created for you. Created for internal use. It was written in Hebrew. It's an intimate discourse. You're just invited to listen. So don't feel guilty, okay? It's not about that. Not at all. To be cocked like a rifle, the hand clutching a pistol. 12, go one back. Are you with me? To be cocked like a rifle, the hand clutching a pistol, to walk in a close, harsh line. This is why I gave you this picture. Even after the cheeks are filled with dust, and the seared flesh is fallen away, and the eyes can no longer focus on the target. He's really pushing it, right? How hard it is to be a soldier in the army. And Israeli Jewish identity is about that. To be ready all the time, rifle in hand, be ready, fight, walk in the dust, in the sand, in the sun, la 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 la, okay? There is a saying, a loaded gun is bound to fire. Not true. You have the stepping aside again from the picture. Say, well, you see, if you're so loaded and you're so ready, you will end up shooting. Not true, he says. In the land of Israel, anything can happen. A broken pin, a spring rusted through, or the sudden cancellation of your orders without explanation, as it once happened to Abraham on Mount Moriah. Isn't it amazing? Like this totally secular guy describing basic training for you with the sweat and the guns and the bullets, almost making you feel guilty, I don't think that he would describe himself as a person of observance or religion. I know he wouldn't. And then what he says to you, you live in this country, any miracle can happen. Even the cancellation of orders. If you pay attention carefully, maybe even peace will come, as it once happened on top of Moriah. So if I needed to draw my line from the sacrifice, it's very easy for us to constantly be reminded of the fact of sacrifice. But you would then ask us, so if you know that will happen, and you went to the military, and your kids went to the military, and unfortunately I think that my grandchildren will go to the military, why do you stay here? I will give you Aryeh Sivan's poem, because it may happen, like a cancellation of an order. And if we pay attention, and if we are careful, and if we are ready, with the rifle in hand, it may happen, just like it did on top of Moriah. Okay? So take that sacrifice thing like a mixed kind of feeling. It's not all bad. The need to do it gives you the ability of readiness to that possibility that now looks insane, but it did happen on Moriah. So if it happened once, maybe tomorrow. Okay? And now to my beloved last part, and we are giving 2 minutes to each. Okay. We are going to visit 3 worlds, each of them separate. I'll introduce them and watch my watch, and we'll see how many we can do. If you had to choose between a Yemenite voice that is taking the Latin expression ars poetica, that described poetry for its own sake in the professional language of literati, and is writing it not with an aleph, what is an ayin, which in colloquial Hebrew, ars poetica, ars is a pimp. And therefore, this is the poetry of that other voice, Sfadi, deprived, not heard enough. The second will be from the heart of modern Orthodoxy, as you could have seen on the television series Srogim, if you ever saw it. If you didn't, you must. And that's the most recent poem. And we have Hamutal Bar Yosef, who will invite you to the particular religiosity of an Omer celebration in a kibbutz many years ago, which is where I come from. How many of you have celebrated Omer? You don't do that before Seder? Not counting the Omer, going out to the field and cutting the sheaves. No? Didn't you know you have to do it before Seder? I'm really, really shocked. Okay, so go to page. Mine is 17, and it says Class by Hamutal Bar Yosef. 14. Page 14, everybody. I'm going to read this through. She's still with us. She's the one who translated Julia Wiener for us. I'm from here. My parents were born in Gola, exile. They called the Jewish state Geula, redemption. Doesn't work in English. Exile and redemption works in Hebrew, Gola and Geula. I was born to the square Hebrew, upright Hungary. That was a good reason to be proud. I was born in a kibbutz. I walked barefoot. For good and for better, we grew up like brothers, the girls with the boys, the happy times alongside the fears. In our kibbutz, there was no synagogue. But Erev Shabbat was different time, special. After a warm shower, we were all dressed in white shirts that had arrived all ironed from the communal laundry. Israeli Jewish identity. And on Erev Pesach, we reaped the new wheat. The Chaver, the member, who played the great Kohen, had asked, did the sun set? And we all responded, it did. And he asked again, shall I reap? Ha'ektzor? And we all responded, ktzor, reap. Then we gathered to celebrate the Seder, and we were all together. We did not think that what we had done was Jewish. We did not think that it was a good reason to be proud. I'm from here. Most women light Shabbat candles here. Most, not everybody. For a whole week every year, it is hard to get bread in most places. Okay? One day a year, a desert silence paralyzes most of the traffic. 2 days a year, the sound of the siren is a fire skewer, heart-wrenching. Not a big people, not numerous, living in a Jewish state, the only one we had loved and will love. And for whatever it's worth, for good and for better, it is a good reason to be proud, even now. Okay, I am now using my precious minutes very, very carefully. And between Adi Kesar and Shlomit Naim Naor, I am going to choose Shlomit because she's my friend, because I love this sort of spoken poem, and because it's a voice that we sometimes hush and like to leave for the secret moments, for the weeping at night. Are you guys aware that if you grow up within Orthodox circles, either here or there, no matter how extreme or how ultra or not ultra, this is not ultra, there is a terrible pressure on young women to get married? Did you know that some young women may want to have a career, that they may think it's not the only thing in the world, but the world they live in makes it so. So just in case you want to know, I know when Shlomit had written this, and I need for you to know that she is now married happily with 2 children. You need to know that in case your Jewish mother's heart are breaking for her. Please do not. Everything is okay. But then again, why should we feel relaxed that that is the okay and the only okay we accept for her? Okay? So, how come you're not married? Lightning strikes twice in the abandoned forest clearing, and there is no one to witness. You know that expression? Okay. This is not how things should have happened. And you had acquired all the virtues. You hopped 8 times over a burning Chanukiah. You prayed in Uman, like she went to the Braslav site. Read the Song of Song 40 days consecutively. You thought that by 26 you will be married with 2 kids, an ever-rising list of disappointments. So she is too choosy for sure. What is she looking for already? Does she really think anything better than this will ever happen to her? Everyone compromises in the end. Maybe this time it will happen. You do not really have a motherly voice. Maybe this time it will happen. Maybe you should try not talking at dates. You're simply too smart. Do not try to be too smart. Maybe you should lose some weight. Yeah, that will surely help. Maybe this time it will happen. Maybe this time. Maybe. There is no place left for nature and its unravelment, and every taxi driver recognizes the wound. And when will the mind get distracted? When? Mashiach. And I want for us to close on this tone of Mashiach, because for many of us in Jewish identity, Mashiach is that eternal, national, end of days redemption. And in some of the Israeli Jewish identities, Mashiach is the everyday, wishful praying for things that are not exactly in line as they should. Let me give you Shlomit Naim Naor, a good friend who published her book of poetry 6 weeks ago. Thank you very much. Toda Rabba. And yes, I could take a couple of questions if you have the time. If you need to go, go. Yes, sir. At the time when Israel is so criticized, at the time that we cannot set a foot right, says, you know what, I still have pride in those days when we created that type of Judaism. When left Israel, the kibbutznikim are criticized for their lack of Jewishness. I'm still proud of that type of Jewish identity that I grew up in. Yes, thank you, sir. Any more? Yeah.
Whose voice did we not hear?
Endless. We didn't hear the settlers. We didn't hear the Mizrahi. We didn't hear the American Olim. We didn't hear, I don't know. Jews you want. The Ethiopians, right. Plenty. Like an hour and a half. And I have prepared twice as much that we will do who knows when and what. So therefore my raison d'etre for this is now go ahead and read some more. Thank you. I don't look for one answer of one Israeli Jewish identity. It does not exist. There is no such animal. We are all these voices plus the missing ones. Yes, last one.
How can we study more with you?
See me after class. Okay. Anything else? Thank you. Thank you. Toda Rabba.